While some modern day beauty trends might be dangerous and questionable, BBLs, I'm looking at you, Victorian era beauty trends did some things that, by our modern standards, are definitely health risk inducing. So today we'll chat about a lot of stuff to do with human redness, dangerous corsetry trends, and more. What do you think should be on this list? Let me know in the comments and let's see if you're right. When the first radioactive consumer products were launched in the early 1900s, radioactivity was a brand new field of science. Ergo technically at the end of the Victorian era, so it squeaked onto today's list, but it still counts. The term radioactivity itself was actually coined by Polish-French scientist Marie Curie in 1898, the same year she discovered radium. Now before people started to fear radioactivity, all they seemed to know about it was that it contained energy. This is according to Timothy J. Jorgensen, an associate professor of radiation medicine at Georgetown University, and he said this in an interview. There were implications that the energy would help your teeth if they put it in toothpaste and give you a glowing expression if they put it in facial cream, but there wasn't really any science to show that it was true. And soon after its discovery, radioactive beauty products were hitting the shelves, and people were like, I'll take it, and then, well, things didn't go so well. So when somebody is in love, their pupils dilate. And in Victorian era England, women with very large pupils were considered extremely beautiful. Think Pixar eyes. So in the pursuit of captivating eyes, those women resorted to using belladonna drops. Belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, was believed to enlarge the pupils and create a seductive gaze. Women would put a few drops of it into their eyes to get that effect. Well, belladonna is one of the most poisonous plants to ever exist, and even a small amount can be deadly. The use of these drops pose significant risks, including severe eye irritation, rashes, and blindness. But despite the dangers, a lot of women continue to use these drops in their beauty routines. Now, in her later years, Queen Victoria used the drops in an attempt to get rid of cataracts. Now, while they didn't cure her condition, her eyesight still improved because her pupils dilated. So she continued to use them and refused to have surgery. I get it, I'm stubborn too, but like, your health. Now, Victorian women were also obsessed with achieving a bright and dazzling smile, and to whiten their teeth, they resorted to using toxic substances such as ammonia and charcoal. Ammonia was believed to have teeth whitening properties, but it could lead to gum irritation, enamel erosion, and other dental problems. Now, it's fair to say that at the beginning of the Victorian period, toothbrushing, dentures, and tooth pulling were well understood, whereas by the end there were tools such as dental drills and multiple competing brands of toothpaste. In the Ugly Girl papers, S.D. Powers recommended swallowing a teaspoon of poisonous ammonia mixed in a glass of water to improve the breath and prevent the decay of teeth for someone with acid stomach, which we now call acid reflux. Now for toothpaste, she recommended using burned bread or charcoal twice a day to clean your teeth. Ow. In the guide, Personal Beauty, How to Cultivate and Preserve It in Accordance with the Laws of Health, the author recommends that if somebody's teeth are beginning to rot, they should use a mouthwash made with brandy, spirits of camphor, and myrrh. Swallowing spirits of camphor can lead to death, by the way, although it is used for infection and healing in vapor rubs. For toothaches, no snow lozenges were easily available for purchase at a local pharmacy and were also believed to cure coughs and colds. Now obviously they must have been popular because a lot of folks got addicted. Wonder why? Perfumes and fragrances were an integral part of Victorian beauty rituals, but a lot of those perfumes contained toxic ingredients that posed health risks. Some perfumes were made with substances like mercury, which could be absorbed through the skin and led to mercury poisoning. A lot of women also used fragrances that contained substances like nitrobenzene, which is highly toxic and can cause skin irritation, respiratory problems, and liver damage. But despite the risks, the allure of intoxicating fragrances led these women to continue using these poisonous perfumes. What? Is there anything wrong with vanilla? We've all heard of the age-old myth that plucking a hair will cause 3 rougher and darker hairs to sprout in its place. It's false, but it's still told to people to this day. I heard it growing up. And instead of using tweezers or shaving, experts back in the Victorian age had a variety of suggestions, including a seemingly harmless practice of drying out the skin with a paste of wood ashes so that hair would just rub off. Yeah, and it only gets worse from there, folks. Someone also suggested killing 2 birds with 1 stone by whitening your forearms and removing hair at the same time. To do that, well, let's see, you gotta use chloride of lime, which is a chemical used to bleach cotton, followed by a vinegar rinse. At the very least, folks were told to do this by an open window, because it was made known that the chemical can eat away your skin if it left on for too long. And that just sounds awful. Stick to shaving cream. Before the invention of fake bakes and spray tans, and that being all the rage, paleness was the must-have beauty trend. In history, white skin as white as snow, was a sign of modesty and virtue in a woman. However, a pure white porcelain complexion is kinda hard for a healthy person to attain naturally. So women went to extreme lengths to whiten their skin and attain that highly sought-after virtuous look. And yes, it was also done for medical reasons, but like, people just were vain. We still are. The practice is 3,000 years old but became fashionable in the Victorian years. We're gonna call it red lighting, and it was the practice of making a small incision in somebody's arm, and then you were given a pole to squeeze until a sufficient amount of fluid spills out. You collect the redness in a bowl underneath the incision, and the idea was that like whatever you're suffering from was carried in fluids. And if you took enough out of the system, goodbye illness. You would have less of a sickness or a toxin inside of you, and your body's gonna regenerate fresh redness, and whatever's left, well, it can be fought off. One of the more popular methods for fashion purposes though was just self-inflicted red spilling through the application of fluid-sucking leeches. Where would these ladies put them? Well, the ears. You wouldn't see it there. And that's how you can drain your redness in a controlled fashion. And thus you can also get the color out of your face, because at the time if you were like super done up, super make-upped up, well, somebody thought you were a lady of the night. Or an actress. Both were just as bad. In the 1800s, curly hair was popular. Early curling irons were tongs that needed to be heated in a fire. So if a woman pulled the curling iron out of the fire and applied it to her hair too quickly, it would be so hot that her hair would literally burn off. As a result, baldness became a common problem for women in the Victorian era, because even if they became skilled at curling their hair, it was still a lot of strain on the scalp to constantly style it in tight curls. Women didn't seem to put two and two together and tried multiple remedies of teas and medicines. It was even suggested that hair should be bathed with ammonia and water to stimulate growth. Once again, folks, exposure to ammonia can cause respiratory problems, burn the skin, cause blindness, need I go on? One expert suggested a mixture of equal parts sulfate of quinine and aromatic tincture for baldness and loss of wet eyebrows in a fire. She also advised women to avoid having their curling tongs make direct contact with their hair, which a lot of folks didn't realize until it was too late. In other popular hair trends, yeah, we're gonna talk about ammonia a bit more. It was a common ingredient in Victorian hair care. It was used for a lot of purposes. It was used to make your hair grow, but also to get rid of hair, because it was believed to have hair stimulating properties, but it could also cause severe damage to the scalp and follicles. You could get hair loss, scalp irritation, and once again, respiratory problems. But despite the risks, women continued using ammonia-based hair products in their quest for luscious locks. So during this era, a lot of folks died of consumption, tuberculosis, and society had a creepy fascination with death. I'm gonna cite this again. In the Ugly Girl Papers by S.D. Powers, she declared that the clearest, most beautiful complexions were seen on people in the earliest stages of consumption. These women were constantly vomiting redness, and Powers claimed that this was actually purging the impurities from their body, which made their skin clear, white, and quote-unquote perfect. How to replicate this? Well, she advised that folks eat as little as possible. This would allow them to maintain just enough strength to function while also weakening their bodies. She suggested a meal plan that consisted of a handful of strawberries for breakfast, half an orange for lunch, cherries for dinner, and if you must, it was okay to have a little bit of warm broth. Powers also believed that ammonia carbonate and powdered charcoal was a must in any woman's beauty regime. These toxic chemicals were supposed to sit on women's faces. In addition, women were instructed to take a variety of medications every 3 months to purify their red fluids, although they were just making themselves sick to achieve the look of being close to death. Also during this time, a lot of men and women were unhappy with the noses that they had been born with, just like today. But years before plastic surgery existed, there were a variety of companies that manufactured nose shapers or nose machines. These metal devices were strapped to a person's face to squeeze the soft cartilage of their nose to be smaller or straighter than it was before. And over the years, these things sold like hotcakes. Heather Big invented a spring-loaded contraption with straps to hold the metal around the patient's face while they slept overnight and occasionally throughout the day. This trained the person's nose to begin taking a more attractive shape. Dr. Sid, a surgeon from Paris, reported to his English colleagues that he had created a metal spring-loaded contraption that apparently squeezed a very young patient's nose for 3 months until she was happy with the results. And finally for today, corsets are a fashion item that have been criticized and rudely dismissed as a tumultuous device over the years, and while they aren't harmful as a whole, some of the older and current trends of tight lacing, specifically, do actually have harmful results. So the hourglass figure was highly coveted during the Victorian era, and some women, only some, went to extreme lengths to achieve it. Tight lacing a corset would cinch the waist and push up the breasts. Tight lacing a corset would cinch the waist, push up the girls, creating the illusion of a smaller waist and exaggerated hourglass shape. However, wearing corsets in this style specifically for extended periods had severe consequences on women's health. The tight lacing specifically caused physical deformities, compressed organs, and restricted breathing. Speaking from experience, if a modern girlie was to, say, wear a steel-boned corset that wasn't made for her measurements, so too small, for long periods of time in cold weather, that could cause lifelong rib and back damage. Some women even experienced experienced fainting spells and difficulty in performing everyday tasks. But once again, if worn properly, corsets pose little to no health risk and actually have been helpful for a lot of folks for posture reasons and bust support. Also, something people forget, corsets were designed to be worn over a shirt, which makes them feel a lot better on the skin. And that's it for me once again, folks. I've been Alexa, your resident emo girly. See y'all next time I buzz in over here at Bumblebee.